Every single night, without fail, Kang Seo-jun placed a glass of warm honey water on Zariah's nightstand while she slept. She never asked him to do it. He never explained why. She would find it every morning, golden, warm, waiting, and she would drink it without thinking because somewhere deep in her bones it felt familiar. What Zariah did not know was that 23 years ago, a little girl with box braids and yellow beads had found a crying Korean boy in a park in Arlington, Virginia, broken her honey sandwich in half, and told him, "My mama says honey makes everything better." That boy had spent the next 2 decades building an empire so he could keep a promise he whispered to her the last day they ever played together. "I'll come back for you. I promise." And when Zariah Langston walked into his office, heartbroken, humiliated, and burning for revenge, and asked the most feared man on the East Coast to marry her, his answer had been decided before she ever opened her mouth. But first, she would have to survive the war she started. She would have to decide whether the man sleeping on the other side of her bedroom wall was her salvation, or the most beautiful trap ever built. And she would have to face a truth that would shatter everything she thought she knew about love, about loyalty, and about the boy she had forgotten. Asterisk before we dive in, if you love stories packed with drama, revenge, and love that will make you hold your breath, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what comes next. Asterisk. 300 of New York's most powerful people were gathered in the grand ballroom of the Ashworth estate the night Zariah Langston's life split in two. She stood at the top of the marble staircase in a custom emerald gown, her locks swept into an elegant updo with gold cuffs threaded through them, her dark brown skin luminous against the rich fabric. She looked like she had been carved from something ancient and royal, and she knew it, because her father had spent 27 years making sure she knew exactly who she was. Zariah Langston. Only daughter of Marcus Langston, founder of Langston Capital, a black-owned investment firm that had clawed its way from a one-room office in Harlem to the top floors of Wall Street over 3 generations. Tonight was supposed to be the night her family's legacy merged with another, the Ashworth Group, one of the oldest real estate empires on the eastern seaboard. Tonight, her fiancé Derek Ashworth, golden-haired, blue-eyed, effortlessly charming Derek, was going to announce their engagement before this crowd. A union of power. A merger of fortunes. And for Zariah, the culmination of 3 years of love so consuming she had rearranged her entire world around it. For minutes before she descended the staircase, her phone buzzed. An anonymous message. A video attachment. 12 seconds long. In those 12 seconds, Zariah watched Derek Ashworth tangled in hotel sheets with Vivian Cole, Senator's daughter. Zariah's college roommate. Her maid of honor. 12 seconds. 3 years, incinerated. She locked the phone. She swallowed the scream building behind her ribs. And she descended the staircase, because Marcus Langston had raised his daughter with one unbreakable rule: never let them see you bleed. Derek waited at the bottom, hand extended, that perfect smile gleaming. He pulled her close. Kissed her temple. "There she is," he murmured to the crowd. "My queen." His lips felt like a lie against her skin. He raised his champagne glass and launched into a speech about partnership and forever, and then Catherine Ashworth appeared. Derek's mother was tall, angular, silver-streaked auburn hair, a smile that never reached her eyes. She stepped to the microphone with the precision of someone who had rehearsed this moment. "Before we make this official," Catherine said sweetly, "the Ashworth family has one small matter to address." She produced a leather folder. Inside was a document. As a condition of this marriage, the Langston family will transfer 40% of their equity holdings into an Ashworth-managed trust. Additionally, Zariah will step down from her operational role at Langston Capital within 6 months of the wedding. The ballroom went silent. "Your family's firm is impressive," Catherine continued, her gaze locking onto Zariah with surgical coldness, considering its origins. "But the Ashworth name carries a certain weight. Surely accommodations must be made. Considering its origins." There it was. Dressed in silk. Served on crystal. The same venom Zariah had been swallowing her entire life, repackaged for polite company. She looked at Derek. He was staring at his shoes. He knew. He had agreed to it. "Derek. Look at me." He raised his eyes. And in them she found not shame, not surprise, but calculation. He had traded her for a business deal and wasn't even conflicted about it. In her peripheral vision, Vivian Cole stood near the bar in a red dress, watching with an expression that was not guilt. It was triumph. Something inside Zariah crystallized into steel. She took the document from Catherine's hands, held it up so every camera could see, and tore it cleanly in half. "My father built Langston Capital from nothing," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. "3 generations of brilliance you could never replicate. And you stand here, in a room my family's money helped build, and ask me to surrender my legacy as the price of admission to your family?" She turned to Derek. "And you? You knew about this. You agreed to it. Tell me, does Vivian know about the prenup too? Or is she exempt because she has the right origins?" The ballroom erupted in whispers. "Stop," Derek hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No, Derek. You embarrassed me. Every night you spent with her. Every lie you told me. We're done." She turned and walked through the crowd. 300 people parted. She did not run. She did not cry. She walked out into the cold November night and pressed her back against the stone wall and breathed. Her phone buzzed. A different number. Asterisk, "You deserved better than what happened tonight. If you want the power to ensure it never happens again, meet me. KS. Asterisk. An address. The Hamel Tower. Headquarters of the Kong Syndicate." Everyone in certain circles knew the name Kong. On paper, they owned Hamel Group, tech, pharmaceuticals, luxury real estate, private security. Beneath the surface, the most powerful Korean-American crime syndicate on the eastern seaboard. At the head of it all, Kang Seo-jun. 30 years old. Billionaire. CEO. The kind of man federal agents spend entire careers failing to touch. Zariah should have deleted the message. She should have gone home. She called a car. The elevator to the 49th floor required a keycard, a retinal scan, and an armed escort. As the doors opened, a man in an expensive suit was being escorted out by Seo-jun's security detail. The man's face was ashen. His hands shook. When his eyes met Zariah's, she saw something in them she recognized from nature documentaries, the look of prey that has just been released by a predator who decided, this time, to be merciful. Zariah stepped into the office, vast, minimalist, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, and stared at the man who had summoned her. Kang Seo-jun stood at the windows with his back to her. When he turned, she registered height, broad shoulders, sharp features, a jaw like a blade. His dark eyes settled on her and held, and the air became heavier. He looked at her the way people look at something they've been searching for across a very long distance. "Miss Langston. Thank you for coming." "Who was that man?" she asked from the doorway. "Someone who broke a promise to my family." "And what happens to people who break promises to your family?" "They learn not to do it again." Zariah's spine tingled. She did not let it reach her face. "You sent me the video of Derek. I sent you the truth. What you do with it is yours." He placed a thick folder on the desk. Financial records. Offshore accounts. Internal communications. Evidence that could burn the Ashworth empire to the ground. "What do you want?" Zariah asked. "A marriage. 12 months. Contract only. The Kong family needs legitimacy in circles where our name carries complications. Your family's reputation would open doors money alone cannot. In exchange, you receive my full resources, legal, financial, strategic, to dismantle the Ashworths. You're asking me to marry a man the FBI has been investigating for a decade. They've found nothing in that decade. That should tell you something. It tells me you're dangerous." He leaned forward slightly. "I am dangerous, Zariah. I won't pretend otherwise." A pause. Something shifted in his voice, became quieter, older. "But not to you. Never to you." The way he said her name. Like it was something practiced. Something precious. "3 conditions," she said. "Langston Capital stays entirely under my family's control. A prenuptial agreement that protects me completely. And this remains business. Nothing more." "Agreed. Have your attorneys meet mine Thursday." Or, he hesitated, and for the first time she saw uncertainty in him. "I can bring the agreement to you directly. So you can ask any questions you need." "Bring it yourself," Zariah said. She wanted to watch his face when he showed her the terms. A person's eyes told you everything their mouth wouldn't. He arrived at her apartment 3 days later carrying a leather portfolio and nothing else. No entourage. No attorneys. Just Kang Seo-jun in a dark gray suit, standing in her doorway like a man delivering a verdict. They sat across from each other at her kitchen table. He slid the document toward her without preamble. Zariah read it line by line. She was trained for this. Her father had made her read contracts before she could drive. But by the 3rd page, her composure cracked. She looked up. "This says if you wrong me in any way, you forfeit 60% of your personal assets." "Yes. All your properties, New York, Los Angeles, Seoul, transferred to my name." "Yes. And 26% of Hamel Group shares. Making me the 2nd largest shareholder in a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate." "Yes." She set the document down and stared at him. He sat perfectly still, hands folded, watching her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "Seo-jun, this prenup gives me the power to destroy you." "I know. Then why would you agree to it?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because right now, after what you've been through, trust is the most expensive thing in the world. And I'm paying for it." She searched his face for the catch. For the smirk. For the tell that every powerful man eventually revealed, the flicker of ownership disguised as generosity. She found nothing. Just steadiness. Just patience. Just dark eyes that looked at her like she was the only fixed point in his universe. It terrified her. "I'll have my attorney review it," she said, breaking eye contact. Of course. Her attorney called her that evening and said, in 20 years of practice, he had never seen a prenuptial agreement that so thoroughly favored the other party. Either this man is genuinely selfless or genuinely insane. Possibly both. She signed it the next morning. She called her father that afternoon. Marcus Langston listened in silence as his daughter explained the contract marriage. When she finished, the silence stretched into something cavernous. "No," Marcus said. "Daddy. I did not raise you to sell yourself to the most dangerous man in New York because some boy broke your heart. Our legacy is built on integrity, Zariah. This is not that. I'm protecting our legacy. Then you're doing it without me." He hung up. They married on a Tuesday at a downtown courthouse. Marcus was not there. Taemin, Seojun's right-hand man, served as witness. Zariah wore simple white silk and felt her father's absence like a phantom limb. When the judge asked if she took this man, she said, "I do," with the steady voice of a woman entering a war. When Seo-jun said, "I do," there was a reverence in it that she wasn't ready to examine. The Kong penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Hamel Tower. Her room had been prepared next to his with meticulous care. Satin pillowcases for her locks, her preferred shea butter, books by Toni Morrison and Octavia Butler on the nightstand. "How do you know I read Octavia Butler?" she asked, standing in the doorway. Seo-jun passed in the hallway. "You mentioned it in a magazine interview. 2 years ago. That's not research. That's surveillance. Consideration," he said simply. "I wanted you to feel at home." She closed the door between them. Firmly. The first 2 weeks, they orbited each other carefully. Seo-jun left early, returned late, and cooked dinner every evening. Not staff. Him. Kimchi jjigae. Japchae. Bulgogi. He ate alone if she didn't join him and never once asked why. Zariah began noticing things. Small things that painted a larger picture. Every restaurant they visited seated them immediately, not in the dining room, but in private rooms that seemed to materialize the moment Seo-jun walked through the door. Waiters never approached the table without Taemin's nod. On the street, people stepped aside when Seo Jun passed. Not rudely. Instinctively. The way water parts around stone. One evening at an upscale Korean restaurant in Koreatown, Zaraya watched a man at a nearby table recognize Seo Jun and physically flinch. The man gathered his wife and left without finishing their meal. Does that happen often? Zaraya asked, watching the couple hurry out. Seo Jun didn't look up from his menu. Does what happen? She didn't press. But that night she lay in bed and thought about the world she had married into, the invisible architecture of fear and respect that surrounded this man like a second skin. Each morning, a glass of honey water appeared on her nightstand. Every single morning. She drank it without asking where it came from, because asking would mean acknowledging that someone in this cold, transactional arrangement was doing something unbearably tender, and she was not ready for that. 3
As you
weeks
see,
into
our
the
metrics
marriage,
are strong,
Zaraya
even
struck.
with appraisal issues.
Using
false appraisals
Seojin's
are
financial
concerning.
intelligence,
We've corrected them,
she pulled the
driving our
3 largest
20%
investors
growth.
from the Ashworth Group's
Gentlemen,
flagship
these
$2 billion
figures show our
Brooklyn
path to
development by
dominance.
presenting
With your
evidence of
investment,
falsified
we will
appraisals and
skyrocket,
misrepresented debt
reshaping the
ratios.
industry.
Ashworth stock dropped 14% overnight. Catherine Ashworth retaliated within the week. Articles appeared in major publications alleging Langston Capital was laundering money through the Kong syndicate. 2 institutional clients pulled their accounts. Marcus Langston's phone rang non-stop with panicked partners. Then came the charity gala. Zaraya attended the New York Children's Foundation benefit alone. Seo Jun offered to accompany her. She declined. She was standing near the silent auction tables when Vivian Cole materialized at her elbow. Zaraya. Marriage to a crime lord must agree with you. Vivian. You look comfortable in my leftovers. Vivian's smile didn't waver. She leaned in close enough that only Zaraya could hear. Derek told me everything. The contract marriage. The files. All of it. Catherine's already taken it to people who matter. By next week, everyone in this room will know your marriage is fake, your revenge is desperate, and your own father won't speak to you. She straightened, smiled for the cameras, and walked away. Zaraya stood with her champagne frozen and her blood running cold. The one advantage she had, the perceived alliance with the Kong family, was about to be exposed as a performance. She left the gala early and called Seo Jun from the car. They know, she said. Derek told them everything. Silence. Then, quietly, come home. We'll handle this. Home, he called it home like it was hers. 2 nights later, Zaraya woke at 1 a.m. to voices in the penthouse. She crept to the hallway's edge and saw Seo Jun in the living room with Taemin and 2 men she didn't recognize. The conversation was in Korean, rapid, sharp, controlled. She couldn't understand the words, but tone was universal. And this tone raised every hair on her body. The quiet man who cooked her dinner was gone. In his place stood someone carved from stone, jaw locked, eyes flat black, voice dropped to a register that vibrated with barely contained authority. One of the men tried to speak. Seo Jun raised a single hand. The man went silent. Not politely. In raw, reflexive fear. Seo Jun spoke a single sentence. Both men bowed and left. Quickly. Like men exiting the presence of something that could end them with a word. Taemin murmured something soft. Seo Jun replied without looking at him, and Taemin also departed. Seo Jun stood alone in the dark living room. He pressed both hands flat against the glass and bowed his head, a man holding up a wall that was trying to crush him. Then he turned and saw Zaraya in the hallway. 15 feet of darkness between them. What was that? She asked. The Ashworths hired someone to follow you. A private operative. My people intercepted the situation. Follow me? For how long? Long enough. It's been handled. It won't happen again. Handled how? He looked at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. In a way that ensures it won't happen again. Seo Jun. The man who cooks me soup and the man I just saw in that room, those are not the same person. Something cracked in his expression. A flash of old pain. They are both me, he said quietly. I wish they weren't. But they are. She went to her room and locked the door. Listen, things are about to take a turn you are not expecting. If you're feeling this story, smash that like button right now and drop a comment. Tell me, do you think Seojun is really who he says he is, or is Zaraya walking into a trap? And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately. Now let's keep going because what's coming next will wreck you. She did not lock her door again after the third night. She could not explain why. Maybe it was the note she found the next morning beside breakfast. Asterisk, you have every right to be afraid. But I will never give you a reason to be. Asterisk. Maybe it was overhearing him on the phone with Marcus that afternoon, enduring 45 minutes of her father's interrogation without defensiveness or posturing. Your daughter is the most capable person I have ever met, sir. My role is to make sure she has every resource she needs. Nothing more. Or maybe it was the evening she came home late and found him asleep on the couch, a blanket folded on the opposite cushion, clearly intended for her. He had waited up. He had fallen asleep waiting. She pulled the blanket over him instead. His eyes fluttered open. You're home, he murmured. Go to sleep, Seojun. His eyes closed. Barely audible, I'm glad you're home. Sunday dinner happened because Marcus called. Bring him. 6 o'clock. He's washing dishes. Seojun arrived at the Harlem brownstone carrying aged soju, handmade yagwa from his grandmother's recipe, and a container of Nigerian-style jollof rice. Marcus stared at the tall Korean man holding jollof rice for 5 full seconds. Boy. Is that jollof rice? Nigerian style, sir. I understand there's a debate. Marcus looked at his daughter. Looked back at Seojun. Laughed so hard he had to hold the doorframe. Dinner was collard greens, mac and cheese, candied yams, cornbread, and braised short ribs. Seojun ate everything, asked for seconds on the greens, and complimented Marcus's cornbread with the sincerity of a man tasting something sacred. After dinner, Marcus and Seojun sat on the porch while Zaraya washed dishes and listened through the window. My daughter is the most important thing in my world, Marcus said. I need to know she's safe. From everyone. Including you. Especially from me. I would dismantle everything I've built before I let any part of my world touch her. That's a big promise. It's not a promise, sir. It's a fact. Through the window, Zaraya pressed her hand over her heart and felt it beating too fast. That night at the penthouse, they sat on opposite ends of the couch watching the city lights. The silence between them had changed, it was no longer careful. It was charged. My father likes you, she said, not looking at him. He's a good man. Quiet. Can I ask you something, she said. Anything. When we're out in public, at restaurants, on the street, people react to you differently than they react to anyone I've ever known. They don't just respect you. They're afraid of you. She paused. And then you come home and you make japchae and leave honey water by my bed. How do you hold both of those things inside one person? He was quiet for a long time. My grandmother used to say that every person carries 2 wolves inside them. One that protects. One that destroys. And the one that wins is the one you feed. He looked at her. I have fed the wrong wolf many times, Zaraya. But when I come home, when I'm here, with you, I am feeding the right one. Something in his voice reached inside her chest and pulled. She found herself looking at his mouth. Just for a moment. Just long enough to notice his lips part slightly, his breath catch. His eyes dropped to hers. The distance between them on the couch shrank, not because either of them moved, but because gravity had opinions. His hand lifted toward her face. She felt the warmth of it before it arrived. Then she stood up. Abruptly. Heart hammering. Good night, Seojun. She walked to her room and closed the door, without locking it, and stood on the other side with her back against the wood, breathing hard, pressing her palms against her face. On the other side of the wall, Seojun lowered his hand slowly and stared at the space where she had been and did not breathe for a very long time. The attack came on a Wednesday. A private business dinner at a Tribeca restaurant, a meeting with potential Langston Capital investors. The evening went smoothly. Zoraya drank sparkling water with lemon. 30 minutes after leaving, in the back of the car, the world tilted. Her vision blurred. Her hands went numb. Nausea hit so violently she couldn't speak. The driver, one of Seojun's men, always one of Seojun's men, called it in before the car traveled another block. Zoraya woke in a private hospital suite. Fluorescent lights overhead. Seojun's hand wrapped around hers. He was still in his suit, tie loosened, hair disheveled. His eyes were red-rimmed. The expression on his face was something she'd never seen, not the cold authority from the living room, not the gentle patience of their daily life. Something rawer. A fury so tightly controlled it was almost more frightening than if he'd been screaming. "Someone put something in your water at the restaurant," he said, his voice level but trembling underneath. "Not lethal. Designed to incapacitate. To send a message. Catherine." The reservation traced back to a contractor connected to the Ashworth family. Zoraya looked at their joined hands. His were shaking. "Are you okay?" she asked. He stared at her. Then released a breath that sounded like it had been trapped for hours. "You're in a hospital bed because I brought you into my world, and you're asking if I'm okay? You didn't do this. They did. I should have protected you better. Seojun. Stop." She squeezed his hand. "I chose this. This is my fight too." He looked down at their hands. When he looked up, his eyes were bright. "I will make sure they never come near you again. Within the law. For you." She believed him. And that terrified her more than anything Catherine Ashworth could ever do, because believing him meant trusting him, and trusting him meant letting him pass the last wall she had. Within 48 hours, Seojun's legal team connected the incident to Catherine's contractor. Evidence was turned over to federal authorities. Combined with the existing tax fraud investigation, Catherine was served with a restraining order and named a person of interest in an ongoing federal case. She found the files on a Sunday morning. Seojun was at a meeting. She was looking for a book in his study when a drawer revealed a leather portfolio she'd never seen. Inside were photographs. Of her. Not paparazzi shots, older. Her college graduation. A financial magazine feature naming her one of 30 under 30. A charity event 3 years ago. And older still, a grainy printout of a school photo. Zoraya at 6 years old, box braids with yellow beads, missing her front teeth, grinning like the world was made of candy. Beneath the photos, a timeline. Her university. Her career. Her relationship with Derek. Notes in Seojun's handwriting spanning years. Her hands went cold. This was not research for a contract marriage. This was obsession. When Seojun came home, the portfolio was open on the dining table. He saw it and stopped. The color drained from his face. "How long?" she asked. Her voice was ice. "How long have you been watching me? Zoraya. Did you orchestrate my humiliation so I'd come running to you?" "No. Immediate. Raw. I would never hurt you to bring you closer to me." "Then explain this." She held up the school photo. "Explain why you have a picture of me at 6 years old." He opened his mouth. Closed it. She watched him struggle with something enormous, something he was clearly not ready to say. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm going to my father's house. Don't follow me. Zoraya, please. If you let me explain." "You've had months to explain. You chose not to." She left. In the elevator descending 52 floors, she pressed her back against the wall and covered her mouth to stifle the sob that tore out of her. The worst part was that some traitorous corner of her heart was screaming at her to go back. At Marcus's brownstone, she told her father everything. The files. The photographs. The years of documentation. Marcus listened. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Baby girl. I'm going to tell you something and I need you to hear it. Tell me. Last month, I left my reading glasses at a restaurant. Didn't mention it to anyone. They showed up at my door the next morning. Seojin's driver brought them. That boy had noticed, called the restaurant, retrieved them, and had them delivered before I woke up. Zaraya stared at her father. That's not obsession, Zaraya. That's a man who pays attention because he cares. Deeply. Maybe in ways he doesn't know how to express. Marcus leaned forward. I'm not telling you to trust him blindly. I'm saying that man is carrying something heavy, something he's been carrying a long time. You owe it to yourself to find out what it is before you walk away. What if I'm wrong? What if I go back and he's exactly what I'm afraid of? Then you leave for good. But what if you don't go back and spend the rest of your life wondering? She sat with that question for a long time. Then she drove back to the Hamel Tower. It was 2 a.m. The penthouse was dark except for a light in the kitchen. Seo-jun stood at the stove, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled to his elbows, heating something in a small pot. The sweet, warm scent reached her before she reached him. He turned. His eyes were swollen. He had been crying. This man who commanded an empire and made powerful men tremble had been standing in his kitchen at 2 in the morning, making honey water for a woman who had walked out, and crying. You came back, he whispered. Tell me the truth. All of it. Right now. He turned off the stove. Poured the honey water. Set the glass between them. When I was 7, he said, my family moved to America from Seoul. I didn't speak English. My father had no time for a child. One afternoon I wandered to a park in Arlington, Virginia. Completely lost. Crying because I couldn't ask anyone for help. Zaraya's breath stopped. A little girl walked up. Box braids with yellow beads. A lunchbox. She sat beside me without a word. Then she opened her lunchbox, took out a honey and peanut butter sandwich, and broke it in half. She gave me the bigger piece. Zaraya's hand went to her mouth. She said, you look sad.
Hey, are you okay?
My mama says honey makes everything
I'm just
better.
sad.
We ate together.
Here, have some of
She
my
told me her name.
lunch.
I tried to say mine and got it wrong, and she laughed, not at me, with me, and said, that's okay. I'll just call you June. Tears streamed down Zaraya's face. We played together that whole summer. She taught me English. I taught her Korean. She was the first person in this country who made me feel like I wasn't alone. He paused. His voice was breaking. The last day before my family moved to New York, I sat with her and promised I would come back.
For you. I promise.
She said, you better. And she made me pinky promise. He held up his hand. Pinky extended. The gesture of a 7-year-old boy who had meant it with every cell in his body. I never forgot her, Zaraya. I looked for her for years. When I found her, she was with someone who didn't deserve her. The school photo, her mother gave it to my family before she passed. I kept it because it was the only picture I had of the girl who saved me. Zaraya was sobbing, deep, shuddering sobs she couldn't control. You're June, she choked. You're the little boy in the park. I've always been June. Why didn't you tell me the first night? Because you came to me broken. You were looking for a weapon, not a love story. How could I say, I've loved you since I was 7, to a woman who had just learned that the last man she loved was a lie? His voice cracked. You would have run. And I would rather have you in my life as a contract than not have you at all. The honey water. Every night. Every night. Because you told me honey makes everything better. And I have believed you since the day you said it. She crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and threw her arms around him. He caught her and pulled her against his chest with the desperate, trembling tenderness of a man who had been holding his breath for 23 years and was finally allowed to exhale. I'm sorry I didn't remember, she whispered. I'm sorry I accused you. You had every right to question me. I should have told you sooner. I was afraid. She pulled back and looked up at him. Afraid? You? A broken laugh. I have faced things that would give most people nightmares. But the thought of you looking at me and seeing only the monster the rest of the world sees, that is the only thing that has ever truly terrified me. She took his face in her hands. Wiped his tears with her thumbs. I see you, she said. I see June. And I see Seo June. And this is not a contract anymore. His eyes searched hers, afraid to hope, desperate to believe. What is it, then? It's real. If you still want it to be. I have wanted nothing else, Kang Seo-jun whispered, for 23 years. When he kissed her, it tasted like honey. Catherine Ashworth's final move came 3 weeks later. The annual New York Business Leaders Summit. 600 of the most powerful people in finance and industry at the plaza. Catherine had arranged for a media exposé on the Kang syndicate's criminal ties to air during the gala's live broadcast, a plan to publicly destroy Seo-jun's reputation and paint Soraya as a desperate woman who had married a criminal. Taemin's intelligence network intercepted the media package 48 hours early and delivered it to Soraya's desk. She read every page. Watched every clip. And smiled. What are you thinking? Seo-jun asked. I'm thinking Catherine just handed me the stage. Soraya. Trust me. He looked at her for a long moment. Always. On the night of the summit, Soraya walked into the plaza in a gown of midnight black with gold embroidery that traced patterns inspired by both Korean jigakbo patchwork and West African kent cloth. Seo-jun walked beside her. Marcus on her other side. As they entered, a woman near the bar leaned toward her companion, not quite quietly enough. Can you imagine? A Langston and a Kang. What kind of family is that even supposed to be? Soraya heard it. Seo-jun heard it. His jaw tightened, but before he could react, Soraya placed her hand over his. Let me, she said softly. She turned to the woman with a smile so composed it could have graced a magazine cover. The kind, Soraya said clearly, that speaks 3 languages, holds seats on 12 boards, and just launched a $200 million fund. Enjoy your evening. She turned back, took Seo-jun's arm, and walked into the ballroom. Seo-jun looked down at her with an expression that contained entire galaxies. At 8:55, 5 minutes before Catherine's exposé was scheduled to air, Soraya took the stage. Good evening. I know I'm not on the program, and I apologize for the interruption. But I've learned that a presentation was planned tonight designed to discredit my husband and me. I thought, why should someone else tell my story when I can tell it myself? She clicked a remote. The screens lit up with her own presentation. My name is Soraya Langston Kang. 6 months ago, I was publicly humiliated by the Ashworth family, told my legacy wasn't enough, that my worth required surrendering my agency and my assets. She clicked again. Financial documents appeared. What the Ashworth family didn't want anyone to know is that their empire was built on fraud. Falsified appraisals. Tax evasion. And most recently, an attempt to physically harm me when I refused to stay silent. The restraining order. The investigation documents. Catherine's contractor connection. All displayed in clean, undeniable detail. Catherine Ashworth's face went white. I didn't come here for revenge, Soraya said, her voice softening. I came here because my father taught me that the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be heard. She looked at Marcus, who stood near the front with tears in his eyes. I also came to announce that Langston Capital and Hamel Group are launching the Honey Bridge Fund, a $200 million initiative investing in minority-owned businesses, tech startups, and community development across the country. She set down the remote. You can try to tear people down. You can lie and scheme and weaponize power against those who trusted you. But you will never diminish someone who knows exactly who they are. The ballroom erupted in standing, thundering applause. Seo-jun waited at the bottom of the stage. He extended his hand, not as a performance, but as a man offering to walk beside a woman he considered his equal. She took it. Marcus appeared at her side. Looked at Seo-jun. Nodded once, slowly, with the weight of a father's full approval. All right, son, Marcus said. You passed. 3 weeks later, Catherine Ashworth sat alone in her office at the Ashworth Group headquarters. The nameplate on the door still read Ashworth, but the hallways were empty. Half the staff had been laid off. The federal investigation had frozen key accounts. Board members had resigned one by one, like rats fleeing water. On her desk lay the morning paper. The headline read, Ashworth Group files for restructuring amid federal probe. Below the fold, a smaller headline, Langston Kong Honey Bridge Fund raises $300 million in first quarter. Catherine stared at the paper for a long time. Then she opened her desk drawer, removed her nameplate, and placed it inside. She stood up, buttoned her jacket, and walked out of the building for the last time. The lobby was silent. No assistants. No security rushing to hold the door. She held it herself. Across town, Derek Ashworth booked a one-way ticket to London. Vivian Cole, finding herself without a wealthy partner or powerful family to attach herself to, did not attend the next season of galas. Or the one after that. She simply disappeared from the social register, slowly and then all at once, like a name written in sand. They renewed their vows on a spring evening in a garden in Arlington, Virginia, 3 blocks from the park where a girl with box braids shared her honey sandwich with a lost boy and changed everything. Marcus walked Zariah down the aisle. Tameen stood as best man and began crying during the processional. Seojan's grandmother, 88, flew in from Seoul and sat in the front row in a hanbok of silver and gold. Before the ceremony, she held Zariah's face in her papery hands and said, in careful English, I prayed for you. Every night. Since he was 7. Zariah wore a gown with embroidery that wove Korean and West African patterns into a single fabric, 2 traditions, 1 cloth, unbreakable. Seojun wore a traditional hanbok in deep navy, and when he saw her walking toward him, he pressed his hand over his heart as though trying to keep it inside his body. I loved you before I knew what love was, he said in his vows. You were a girl who shared her sandwich with a stranger because she believed the world should be kinder. Every soft thing in me, every good thing, exists because of you. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never run out of honey. Zariah took his face in her hands. You waited 23 years. You never rushed me. You never pressured me. You gave me space to be angry, room to be afraid, and time to find my way to you. Her voice broke. I choose you, June. Not because you're powerful. Not because you saved my family. I choose you because you're the boy who sat in a park with me and ate a sandwich and made me feel like I had a friend in the world. That boy was enough. He was always enough. You didn't have to build an empire. You just had to come back. He was crying. She was crying. Marcus was crying. Tameen was inconsolable. Seojan's grandmother nodded with the serene satisfaction of a woman whose prayers had been answered. They kissed, and somewhere in the Virginia evening, something that had waited 23 years finally came home. On their first anniversary, Zariah came home to find a glass of warm honey water on her nightstand, as always. Beside it was a small velvet box. Inside, a delicate gold necklace with a tiny pendant shaped like half a sandwich. She laughed until she cried. Seojun appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, the faintest and most devastating smile on his face. You're ridiculous, she said, clasping it around her neck. And you're my wife. Yes, said Zariah Langston Kong, crossing the room to kiss the most dangerous man on the East Coast, who melted under her touch like he was made of nothing but honey and Sunday dinners and 23 years of patient, unshakable, unbending love. I am. On the nightstand, the honey water glowed golden in the lamplight. Some promises are made in childhood. The best ones are kept forever. Asterisk, and that is the story of Zariah and Seojun. If this story broke you, if it made your heart race, made you cry, made you want to scream, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, smash that like button because this story earned it. Second, drop a comment and tell me your favorite moment, the honey water reveal, the summit speech, the grandmother, the near kiss on the couch. I want to hear it. And third, subscribe. I post stories like this regularly, and the next one might hit even harder than this. Share this with someone who deserves a beautiful love story today. I'll see you in the next one, asterisk.